Are you confused about the differences between traditional and cozy mysteries or hard-boiled versus noir? Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime is offering answers. We've already tackled classic mystery and true crime. Today, we're digging into a writer favorite, The Amateur Sleuth. I am President Fedora Amis, and I'm meeting with Mary Kate Mandeville, who's finishing her first Michigan Dunes mystery. In addition to chatting about Mary Kate's writing, we're going to explore the meaning of the wildly popular amateur sleuth subgenre. Now, I recently received results from a completely non-scientific survey. My responders consisted of avid readers, mostly women, who buy books and love mysteries, almost a hand-chosen group. I asked them to choose their favorite subgenres from 8 categories: classic, private eye, true crime, historical, suspense thriller, police procedural, amateur sleuth, and science fiction fantasy. Yes, the categories overlapped, and yes, they're arbitrary, but we'd love to hear your suggestions and comments. Send them to fedora@fedoraamis.com. Perhaps we should have fewer categories or more. Why? The huge volume of books published each year grows at such an explosive rate that we need more specific words to locate our preferences and to describe them to others. So, what is an amateur sleuth mystery? Well, here is Belk's library definition. I must say it's condescending and too long, so I'm gonna think that we can perhaps do better by the end of this interview. But this is what Belk has to say. This style features minimal violence, sex, and social relevance. A solution achieved by intellect or intuition rather than police procedure, with order restored in the end, honorable and well-bred characters, and a setting in a closed community. Writers include Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers. Amateur sleuth involves the sleuth being an untrained investigator. An amateur, such as a nosy neighbor. Agatha Christie set the model with her unforgettable snoop, Miss Marple. Gotta love Miss Marple. In the same vein, domestic mystery involves pets, which aid their owners in solving crimes. The settings reflect everyday life and may include places of comfort, such as book clubs and bakeries. So as I said, I hope to come up with something a bit simpler and less condescending as the time goes on, because it's certainly one of our favorite types of mysteries, and it's certainly one of Mary Kate's. And let me introduce you to Mary Kate Mandeville, pen name Mary Hickey. She has always loved reading mysteries, especially mysteries with amateur sleuths, so she could tag along and solve the mystery too. Aside from her family, her passions are reading and writing good mysteries and traveling the world. She decided to write mysteries during a self-guided walking tour in the Cotswolds, a charming collection of English villages. And I'm sure you've seen a few from St. Mary Mead, for example, in the amateur sleuth category that come from the Cotswolds, which is a very comfortable, pleasant surrounding. Mary loves to read mysteries set in vacation destinations that engage the reader with a unique puzzle, a little history, and great descriptions of food. And recipes are a big part of a lot of amateur sleuths too. Well, Mary is active in Sisters in Crime. She has a master's in reading and a BA in English. She worked as an English teacher and literacy coach to kindergarten through 12th grade teachers for 18 years. She, of course, also did some writing workshops at Columbia University when she was in New York City. She lives in Chicago and visits charming towns along the Great Lakes. So if you're an armchair traveler looking for new places to enjoy in the upper Midwest, well, let her take you there. So, Mary Kate, you love to read, which is very obvious, and you love amateur sleuths. So tell us all about it.
Okay, thanks, Fedora. I have some amateur sleuths that I wanted to share. I'm going to go back to my early days because I don't know that people realize how many amateur sleuths there are out there. So of course, there's the Nancy Drew and the Trixie Belden. Harriet the Spy is also considered an amateur sleuth. If you read the Tintin comic series, he was always solving mysteries. And then a favorite of many, of course, is Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Inc. group. They were always solving mysteries. For me, an amateur sleuth is just someone who is figuring out mysteries, but they have no official qualifications. They don't have a job title that says they should be investigating some kind of mystery. So I was drawn to that particular genre because it's very empowering to think that any person could solve other people's problems. As I got older, I expanded my reading repertoire to include, of course, more Agatha Christie. The Lillian Jackson Braun series has a newspaper columnist whose cats help him solve the mysteries. Diane Mott Davidson, I read every one of her books. She includes a lot of recipes. She's a caterer. Kind of scary to realize how many people died during her catered events, but somehow she kept getting more jobs. And then I'm also a major history buff, so Elizabeth Peters and her Victorian Egyptologist. So you're reading this fascinating story and you're getting a little bit of history on the side. The TV series, of course, everyone's heard of, Murder, She Wrote. Everywhere Jessica Fletcher went as a mystery writer, she always came across a dead body. So it was very dangerous to spend time with her. And then there's the subgenre of writers who really explore the environment. So Nevada Barr has a park ranger who solves mysteries. Her job is to protect the park. It's not to investigate murders. So that was another favorite of mine. Currently, I have more authors and titles than I could share in our short interview, but I wanted to give you the range of the kinds of amateur detectives I enjoy reading right now. The Reese Bowen series of Royal Spyness, she's the 34th in line to take on the throne in England. Because she can't really hold a job, she has to find other ways to spend her time, and she just happens to be really good at solving mysteries. Agatha Raisin is also a TV series for anyone who's interested in watching, being able to see the towns and not having to try and picture them. MC Beaton series with Agatha Raisin set in the Cotswolds. The Carolyn G. Hart series, this is back from the early 90s. She has done a couple of different series, but the one I really enjoy is of the bookshop owner who owns a mystery bookshop on the coast of South Carolina and finds herself getting into all kinds of trouble. And of course, lots of dead bodies. Then there's the Passport to Peril series. This young woman, the main character, is a travel escort to a group of seniors. So these senior citizens are going on these exciting trips around the world, and she's there just to assist and be there with any help they might need. And they go to great locations, and the author herself went to these locations and took a lot of notes and set a murder mystery in the location. I'm of Irish descent, so of course I have to follow a couple of different Irish murder mystery series. Carolyn O'Connor has a great series where there's a bistro owner, and brown bread features prominently in the book. The Paige Shelton series is set in Alaska. So you get the feeling of the place as the amateur sleuth is trying to solve the mystery. Very close to St. Louis is the writer Jill Orr. She is out of Columbia, Missouri, and a former newspaper writer herself. Her amateur sleuth is also a young and up and coming newspaper writer. And another one I just had to share is the Travel Agent, set in New York, New Jersey. If you like really quirky characters, she's one of the greatest quirky characters I've read in a long time. She has to sell a certain number of travel packages to get a promotion. And the book follows her antics trying to sell packages to seniors and people who don't really have the money to take these kinds of trips. And the part of the story that she includes is the author has a personal passion about the illegal trade in exotic animals. So the definition that you read that talked about how they don't address social issues, I would totally disagree with. The subgenre of amateur sleuths that I particularly enjoy are the ones that really give you a sense of place, but also make you aware of a social issue or a community problem that's specific to that place, and also having that problem solved. So I enjoy that side of the reading and writing of mysteries as well.
One thing I noticed throughout was the titles. The Quiche of Death. Now, does it get any better than that? It's not only food, it's a twist on the kiss of death. And
Yes,
I just
yes.
love it, love it, love it.
Yes.
And you can find a lot of those quirky titles along with oodles of quirky characters in amateur sleuths, all of them. And there are many, many, many. We're going to introduce you to a few, I'm sure, in addition to those wonderful ones that Mary just gave us.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Mary, what is it that gets you to get up and write every day? You do write every day, don't you?
I write every day, yes.
Right.
The problem I have is getting everything else in my life done, because once I get into writing, hours can go by. And so I've had to train myself to do my most important errands first. And then my treat is that then for the rest of the day, I get to write. So I thoroughly enjoy it. But it took me a while to get there. When I first started writing a couple of years ago, it was a new habit for me. And I understood the advice that you can't wait to be inspired. You need to develop the skill. And so I went back to my teacher strategy, and I bought a special calendar, and I bought special stickers for myself. And every day that I was able to hit that 500 new words written, I got to put a sticker on that calendar date. And my goal was to do most days of a week, and then it was most days of a month. And then after a couple of months, I realized I didn't need the incentive anymore, and I had really developed the habit. But it took a while, because if you're not used to sitting and just writing freely for hours, it takes a while to develop the habit. But I've gotten there, and now I have to kind of work on making sure I get other things in my life done.
How do you handle interruptions? I'm sure you must get some.
Not well. I got noise canceling headphones.
Oh.
So, I turned off my phone. My husband is also retired. He will go out and do what he does during the day. So we each get our hobbies that we get to enjoy. And I unplug from the world. So I'm not tempted to be on Facebook or spend my time, because I want to get back to the story I'm working on.
Fabulous. What a great attitude. So I'm sure that many certain authors have influenced you. Also family, teachers. Do you have anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, I have to start with my sisters in crime, Fedora Amis and Lane Boyd. They took me on as a very novice writer and have spent a lot of time giving me very constructive feedback to help me become a better writer. I read voraciously, and I'm new to the craft of writing. So having them give me regular feedback and helping me become a better writer, not just telling me that doesn't work, but also saying, here are some things to think about. Here's something to try. So I have to give a shout out to my sisters in crime. And then the other big inspiration for me was actually the Teachers College at Columbia University. The director there made it her life goal to develop a writing curriculum that any school district in America could adopt. I did not have great writing instruction growing up, because the teachers that I happened to have weren't writers. They did instill a love in reading, as did my mom. But it took until I attended some writing training at the Teachers College which they immerse you and you become, it's very experiential. So for you to learn how to teach students to write, you have to be a writer yourself. So I was lucky enough to be able to attend quite a few of their trainings, and that's really what gave me the bug to try and do some writing.
Well, I'm glad it did, because you're a wonderful critique person in our critique group.
Thank you.
Well, tell us about your work in progress. And I noticed that one of your favorite amateur sleuths was a travel director. Any connection there?
I have just been a travel buff for 30 years. I was fortunate enough to be able to live in London for a couple of years and travel all over the European continent. It's my goal to try and hit 50 countries. I'm in the low 40s right now. So travel has just been a huge passion of mine. So when I wanted to start writing a murder mystery, it was easy for me to pick the kind of amateur sleuth and also the location. My family has been traveling to the beaches of Lake Michigan for over 50 years. My husband's family has been doing it for even longer. People in the Midwest flock to the Great Lakes because in the summer, it is the best place to be. There are great towns all along. There's beaches, there's activities for kids, there's great restaurants. So combining my love of place, my love of travel, putting that together helped me find the amateur detective that I wanted to explore some of the issues around the Great Lakes.
Tell us a little about your protagonist, your amateur sleuth.
So my amateur sleuth is a former travel director for the city of Chicago. So she is she's not enthusiastic about nature. She prefers posh resorts and restaurants and very curated vacations because of a early trauma in the woods. So she has just sworn off for that, but she's trying to overcome that trauma and that phobia that she has. So she has a friend who begs her to come and do some work for her in a small town in northern Michigan. So she takes that challenge and tries out a new career. And while she's doing that, a friend's uncle is murdered. And so she very unwillingly at first, of course, because that's the genre that's what happens for amateur sleuth, is they're not looking for crimes initially. They're kind of drawn into these adventures and do it out of a sense of loyalty and commitment to families and friends or issues of justice. So that's how she gets to be involved in the murder mystery.
So if one day, and you're very lucky, your book should turn into a movie, who would play the lead character?
Well, that's easy because I named Miranda after Miranda Richardson. She's one of my favorite actresses. I think she's done a lot of great work. So she would play the sleuth.
She might be 110 by then, but you could probably still do it.
Something looks like her, of course. Yes. Yes.
Well, I have a little checklist here, because I've been questioned about why I had amateur sleuth instead of cozy, because after all, most amateur sleuths are cozy. Well, here's a checklist for Malice Domestic about what a cozy should be. And I just want to see, you can just say yes or no to each of these and see if you have a cozy. The murder is either bloodless or committed before the story begins.
Yes.
No violence, sex, coarse language.
Correct. Yes, none of that.
The villain's caught and punished in the end.
Yes, absolutely. Justice is served.
The amateur sleuth is a likable person with good values and only minor faults. She or he or the cat usually has a job or profession unrelated to detective work and is often an everyday person you might meet at the grocery store.
Absolutely. Yes.
The sleuth is remarkably capable in picking up clues, making connections, and discovering possible suspects.
Yes.
Forget serial killers or criminals and who kill for fun. Standard cozy motifs are greed, jealousy, or revenge.
Yes.
The setting for cozy is usually limited, so there is a small pool of suspects for the sleuth to interrogate.
Yes. Small town.
Often the snooping and investigating of the sleuth makes her a target of a murderer.
Yes. She has an attempt made on her life.
The cozy is not frantic, wild, and woolly, but rather a gradual revelation of clues that lead to a surprise ending.
Yes.
Often a bit of romance will add spice to a story.
I don't have romance. Not directly with the sleuth. Of course, other characters do, but not with the sleuth.
Okay, well, you can tick 9 out of 10 boxes, and I think that's pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've been a delightful interviewee. I would like to tell everybody that we are well into our series of interviews, and the next one will be with Laura Stewart Schmidt on thrillers and suspense. So be sure to catch that one coming up next. I am Fedora Amis, president of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime. Read mysteries. Do it.
Thanks, Fedora.
See you, or talk to you on Tuesday anyway. Okay.